Hello everybody, and welcome to the very first edition of Ed Puzzle Notes of this school year. Today we're going to go over characteristics of living things. So it's basically, what characteristics or features do all living things have in common, no matter what they are, no matter if it's a snail, a bug, a whale, a tree, monkey. There's certain characteristics that all living things have in common. That's what we're going to go over today. Alright, so we're going to go over 11 different characteristics of life, 11 different characteristics that all living things have in common. And so how are you going to remember all 11? Well, I came up with these two words, cheddars. You've heard of cheddar cheese. Well, cheddar, the cheese, is really spelled with an A right there, but we're going to pretend like cheddar is spelled with an E. So cheddars, and if you have a friend named Dominic, maybe you would call him Dom. So we have cheddars, Dom. And so what does this mean? All right, the C in cheddars. All living things are made of cells. All living things are made of cells. Bacteria, fish, trees, algae, all made of cells. All living things maintain what's called homeostasis. Homeostasis, which is just like a balance. So like if it's 110 degrees outside and you guys are at lunch, your body temperature does not go up to 110 degrees. Your body keeps it balanced at about 98 degrees. So all living things maintain some sort of homeostasis. All living things need energy. All living things require energy, which most organisms, most animals get through eating. Plants get their energy by converting sunlight and carbon dioxide they make sugars. So all living things need energy. All living things develop, and they also grow during their lifetime. So all living things develop, they change throughout their lifetime, and they also grow, they get bigger. The other D stands for DNA. No matter what type of living organism you are, all of them are based on the same molecule called DNA, which gives you your characteristics. So everything living has DNA. The next E is all living things evolve. So over hundreds or thousands or millions of years, organisms change. They become more well adapted to their environment. The next letter, R. All living things have the ability to reproduce. So basically, all living things have the ability to have babies. So no matter what you are, monkeys have baby monkeys. Bacteria, they don't have baby bacteria, but they do divide to make more bacteria. S, this stands for stimuli. All living things respond to some sort of stimuli. So if someone comes up behind you and goes boo, you might jump. Or if it's freezing cold, you might shiver. You're responding to stimuli. If they put a bright light in your face, you'll probably put your hand up to block the light. So that's you responding to different stimuli. The D in Dom. All living things eventually die. That makes sense. If you're alive, eventually you're going to die. So all living things have a relative finite lifespan. Nothing lives forever. O and Dom, they're made from organic molecules. So living things are made from organic molecules, and I'm going to go over what all these are in just a minute. And last but not least, the last one, the M, is all living things show some form of movement. I mean, obviously animals like us and cats and dogs, our movement, we can move around, we can run, we can walk, whatever. Now you would say trees don't move. Trees are stuck in the ground by their roots, but they do move water and sugars up through their branches and through their trunks. So they do move things inside of them. Even though they can't move themselves, they do have the ability to move substances inside the tree. Okay, now we're going to go through these fairly quickly. So this is the C in cheddars. All living things are made of cells. Cells are the smallest thing which is still considered alive. So each individual cell, that's considered alive. Now, once you get smaller than the cell, then it's no longer considered alive. So some organisms are unicellular. Uni means one. If you have a unicycle, that means it's got one wheel. Well, some things only are made of one cell. Things like bacteria and algae. A lot of other things, like us, all the animals, well, most animals, trees, we're multicellular. We're made of many, many cells that are stuck together. That's multicellular. And this one's specialized. All of our cells are specialized, so our muscle cells have a certain job. Neurons, they have a certain job. The cells that make up your skin. So all these cells, they're not exactly the same. They're specialized. They have their own specific job that they do. 2, grow and develop. So I think you guys know what that is. Grow is just to get bigger. So you can see this baby right here is a lot smaller than this man. But develop means as you mature, you tend to look different. So this baby, this man right here does not look like a giant baby. So they look different. So that's what developing is. It's changes you go through as you mature. Number 3, nucleic acids. That's the D. And for DNA. Everything alive is based on the molecule called DNA. So no matter what you are, if you are alive, you have the molecule DNA, and that's what gives you all of your characteristics. All right, number 4. All living things make use of energy. So here is Mr. Chipmunk. He's getting his energy from the corn. This is the plant right here. It gets its energy by combining the sunlight and CO2 and water, and then they release oxygen, but that's how plants get their energy. They make it using sunlight. That's called photosynthesis. So all living things need energy. They require energy. Metabolism. Metabolism is just a word that means the total result of all chemical reactions within an organism. So that's what life is. It's basically chemical reactions that are going on. When you're digesting your food, that's a chemical reaction. When you're thinking, when you're using your muscles, those are chemical reactions. Well, all those chemical reactions put together make up what's called your metabolism. Now, some people, especially young people, they say, oh, they have a really fast metabolism. That basically means they can eat whatever they want and they stay somewhat thin. Where if somebody has a slow metabolism, they could eat like all carrots and celery, and they tend to put on weight. So that's all that means. Heterotrophs, we'll go over this later, like in a month or so. Heterotrophs are things that need to eat. So Mr. Chipmunk right here, if you need to eat something to get your energy, you're a heterotroph. You guys are heterotrophs. You got to eat. If you don't, you'll die. Autotrophs are things that do not have to eat to get their energy. Those are where the plants and algae come in. Plants don't eat. You can try feeding plants a sandwich or something. They won't eat it. But they do get energy by using the sunlight. Number 5, that was the R in Cheddar's. All living things have the ability to reproduce, which means just have babies. Number 6, all living things are made from organic molecules. And this one's super easy. All it means is they're made mostly of carbon and hydrogen. The elements carbon and hydrogen. So here's a fatty acid, which, if you eat butter or oils, anything that has fats in it, lipids, fatty acids, look at all the hydrogens and carbons. There are some oxygens too, but made almost entirely of carbons and hydrogens. That's organic. Okay, number 7, all living things respond to internal or external stimuli. I use this example, I don't know if it really works, but I want you to think, looking at this lemon right here, I want you to visualize you grabbing that lemon in your hand, taking it up and taking a big bite out of that lemon. Think about it, you bite that lemon. Now, if you notice, did your mouth start to water right now when you thought about biting a lemon? Usually it does. That is your your mouth is making saliva in anticipation of biting something like a lemon that is very sour and is very acidic. But when your mouth even thinks about it, it makes saliva. That is you responding to a stimulus. 8, maintain homeostasis. This guy right here, if he's hot, that's probably why he's got that little sweat stain underneath his arm. Well, his body wants to stay at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, if it's too hot, if it's hot outside, if it's higher than 98.6, the body releases sweat to get that body temperature back down to keep it stable at around 98.6 degrees. Same thing when this guy, if his blood, if it starts to get dehydrated, he'll feel thirsty. And then it'll make him want to drink water, which will make him hydrated. So everything wants to stay in balance, and that's all what homeostasis is. It's a process by which organisms maintain a balance between their internal environment and the external environment. Number 9, looks like there's not a number here, but I'll give it one. Number 9, all living things evolve and adapt over time to their environment. So if you look here, this is a modern whale that you would see in the ocean today. But if you went back about 35 to 40 million years ago, whales actually had legs. Whales lived on land. But they would spend a little bit of time in the water, but for the most part, they lived on land. And then as they started to spend more and more time in the water, they lost their legs and they grew fins. That's evolving. That's evolution. And all living things tend to change over time in order to give them a better chance to survive in their environment. So if you went to the snow and you saw a rabbit, usually in the snow, rabbits have white fur. Why? Well, it's harder to see them. So if you have white fur in your rabbit, you have a better chance to live. So more and more rabbits would become having white fur. That's what evolution is. That's what an adaptation is. Any trait or feature that gives an organism a better chance to survive, that's an adaptation. All living things evolve. All right, now the last two. Remember the M in DOM, Cheddar's DOM. The M stand for movement. And like I said earlier, not all living things can exhibit locomotion, which means like move around, like run or fly or swim. Not all things can do that. A lot of things can, most things can, but not all. But even though they can't move themselves, they can still transport substances inside of their body. Trees move substances, sugar and water. They have to move it from their roots all the way up to the very top of their leaves. So they can move stuff around inside of them, even though trees can't get up and walk around. And the last one is all things have a definite lifespan, which basically means, in a nutshell, eventually all things are going to die. And that is the D in Cheddar's DOM. Now, the closest thing to being alive, but isn't really alive, not considered alive, are viruses. So if you happen to get the flu this year, that is a virus that invaded your body and got you sick. Viruses do have DNA and RNA. They do have the same genetic code that we have, that living things have. They also contain organic compounds, like proteins. Viruses, what makes them not living is a couple things. Viruses don't need to eat. So viruses do not have any metabolism. They do not require any energy. Another thing is, viruses cannot reproduce. So viruses can't have baby viruses. They can't make copies of themselves unless they invade one of your cells. So that's the only way viruses can reproduce. They have to get inside one of your cells, and then they can make copies of themselves. But if they don't get into one of your cells, they can't reproduce. Therefore, viruses are not considered living because they do not have all of the characteristics that living things have in common. So to be considered living, you got to have all the characteristics of Cheddar's DOM. If you're missing 1, 2, 5, you're not considered living. You got to have all 11 in order to be considered a living organism. All right. Thank you very much for listening. I will talk to you next time.